So I'm friendly with the Smith brothers. In fact, I spoke with so Alec, and he was texting me just a few minutes ago. He said, "Make sure to ask Bill about the orchard in New. It's the orchard's the one that's in New York. Makes sense, and the ranch is in Montana, right?
Right.
Yeah, a little closer.
Oh, yes.
You can hold it too if you want to.
Okay.
And so anyway, so you're obviously a man who's of the land. So these parts are natural. Whether it's of course Jared's film, Ballad of Lefty Brown, which is why we're here, or the Smith brothers' recent film. Did you get a chance to see that, Jared?
Yeah, I got to see it at South by Southwest.
Oh,
it
right.
was really, it's incredible. I mean, Montana has such a wonderful landscape,
Yes.
and they do such a fantastic job of capturing that.
Yeah.
In crafting a story that is so much about that world.
Mm-hmm. You seem like such a nice young man. He's wearing a very festive, like kind of a winter sweater. I don't know how to it's kind of like arts and craftsy kind of sweater.
Yeah, it's verging on holiday sweater.
You make these big old westerns. It seems to run.
I'm the Jew from New York who likes making Western movies.
Well, that's pretty awesome.
Who was introduced to Westerns by my father, who's Greek, or born and raised in Greece.
Okay. But you grew up in New York?
I grew up in New York, yeah.
Okay, very good. By the way, I'm also friendly because the podcast just keeps leading me back to David Call, the actor.
Oh, David's great.
Yeah, he's
such a good guy.
Yeah. He worked with on the Dead Man's Burden.
Yeah, Dead Man's Burden.
So, well, I'm glad to be here and to talk about this film. I loved it. I'm a big fan of the old Westerns as well. So this is right in line, with that whole mythology of the American West. And so I'm guessing you grew up with that at home.
I grew up watching Westerns. I think for my dad at first, I think, for him when he's a kid, America just exported so many Westerns to Europe. It's what he grew up watching. But for me, I love that place where like mythology and history meets, and the Western is that.
Right.
It's so amazing, and there's something just so cinematic and incredible to just watch a guy ride tall in the saddle, or the cowboy, or the images.
Sure.
The West, the American Indian. It's just so impressive. I
agree, and it's interesting. I guess if you get into the whole genre deep enough, you realize that at some point there's a bit of a split off where, the old John Ford, Howard Hawks started to get more and more, I don't know if the word is sophisticated, but they started taking the kind of psychological, emotional aspects of the characters a bit more, So, and this what I like about Lefty Brown is it takes some of the old tropes, of course, like the sidekick, usually played by Gabby Hayes or Walter Brennan, as we know. But in this case, you've made it a fully fleshed out character with all sorts of dimensions, So it's a very interesting way in.
Yeah, I think that I've always been really interested in that character, because that character exists in every Western. There's always a sidekick, and often it's comedic, and often it's laughed at.
Right, it's usually the comic relief, or comic foil, or what have you.
We hosted this Western marathon in Austin a couple weeks ago, and one of the movies we watched was Red River, and I had actually forgotten the whole Walter Brennan loses his teeth while playing poker, and throughout the entire movie he's arguing with this guy he lost his teeth over, and he's doesn't have his teeth. It's so comedic,
right.
And yet. In that movie, when John Wayne has three guys who are about to kill him, who saves him? It's Walter Brennan who throws him his rifle.
Now it's not so surprising. I confuse Walter Brennan and Gabby Hayes often, and now I have Bill Pullman to confuse in there as well. They are all so similar. You're taking something from those characters a little bit. There's something in your speech and your body language. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's always interesting to suddenly see the movie and realize what's been going on. And I think Jared always had in mind that there's some evolution, and I think there's an evolution even in the pitch of his voice, according to the take shoot. Because I've watched the movie a few times, I realize, the clever director was starting me out, and I'd go up high sometimes early on, and I remember thinking, but I don't really like thinking about the arc of a character myself while I'm doing a movie, because I don't think it's like a critical kind of exterior observation about a character, and I don't, and people aren't always. And there is a kind of amazing thing how little people change, and so but in that journey in the film, you can feel that Lefty's whole pitch even changes, and somewhere after the first third of it, it's really that high register never happens again. So,
right. Yeah. It's so people listening. I mean, I like how you just allude to him as a sidekick. It's a term we don't even really hear too much today in today's films. Like somebody's intentionally designed to be the sidekick. But
I feel like at this point, it's like when sidekick, it's like Robin to Batman.
Yeah.
It's like superheroes have just sort of taken over that term.
Yeah, the sidekick. Yeah. Well, without getting too much, but I wanted to kind of describe the synopsis just a little enough to give people so they can follow. Peter Fonda, and I see him almost tapping into that the kind of slow cadence of a John Wayne or something like that, just to give people a brushstroke idea. But early on he's murdered, and so Bill, your character, then goes after the killers. That becomes your which again is part of that mythology of avenging, your friend's death, your murder.
I think also for Lefty, though, it's a matter of he doesn't really have anything else to do. I mean, it's like he knows this is what he's supposed to do. He doesn't really feel at home.
Code, right?
Yeah, it's like he's supposed to do it, but he also sort of doesn't quite. His home has suddenly become very inhospitable. Mm-hmm. And he knows it's the right thing, but I think if someone else was going to do it, he'd be happy for them to do it.
Well, besides the great Bill Pullman and the cast, you also have Peter Fonda and Kathy Baker. It's pretty. I mean, how does that? You probably kind of, I'm guessing, grew up with those.
Oh yeah, Kathy. I grew up watching Kathy Baker on Picket Fences.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, me too. No, but it's incredible. I mean, I grew up with her even earlier when she was a young movie actor who you'd see quite often in these great 70s films and whatnot.
She's such a talented actor. And it was her first Western. Like, I mean, she just should be in a Western. So I was really glad to work with her on it.
Right.
And
yeah.
She, I think she did an incredible job with that performance.
Yeah. And even though she's a supporting character, she really has this, you've given her a full, again, very, I think, of real life, and she's a strong woman. Has her own set of goals. She's inherited. She actually rather has not inherited the ranch from her husband because of the way the laws were at the time. But is very, very,
But she's going to run that ranch.
Motivated to run it and get it into her hands, as she should, right? So it's really great that all the characters are so well fleshed out. Bill, you're like in every moment of the film practically. You're like in almost every single scene. How long was the shoot, and what was that experience?
It wasn't enough. I wanted to be more than in every scene. I wanted to be in the credits.
I figured you want to read the credits, like instead of rolling them.
First up, Bill Pullman. Second up, Kathy Baker. No, it was very odd that the first day of shooting was the one day I didn't work. So I came to the set, because I wanted to just kind of break that barrier. You're always a certain amount of energy you carry when you're starting a movie, I find. And the first day, it's good to kind of make your way there beforehand. And so I got to watch everybody and from afar. But then the rest of the days, we were running and gunning for every day.
Yeah. What was the shooting schedule? What was it like
should we hold because of these sirens?
You know what? If I did that for every one of my episodes here in Manhattan, I would be like...
Oh, isn't that nice? You got good mics.
It's the soundtrack of my show is sirens, emergency vehicles nonstop. It's okay. It's kind of. I think it gives a little bit of charm to it, like people that are listening from, like, all of a sudden it gives them a perspective of the location and stuff.
But they don't have to worry. This is not a fire in this building, because this is radio.
Right.
People can't.
There's a fire, all right. It's right in this room.
Yeah.
You guys are on fire. Well, where was I before that? Oh no, yeah.
Siri with the win right there.
Is that Siri? Tell her to mind her own business.
Yeah.
Unless she has a good question.
I don't know. She always pops up. When my wife can never get Siri to work, except when like she doesn't want Siri to work. Mm-hmm. She'll like say something to me, and suddenly Siri will pop up. It's I don't know. We shot it in 20 days.
Okay.
So Bill worked 19 of them.
Yeah.
And he hung out on one.
Right, as we said. But it's for those who are listening, and I know there are many. You actually don't live too far from where you shot, right? Right, Bill. You're pretty close by, so it wasn't too big a trip, right?
Well, that was all coincidence.
Was it?
Yeah. It originally was going to be shot in New Mexico, and then maybe Calgary, and then Montana. But Montana's a big state.
I hear.
Yeah. The distance from the southeast corner to the northwest corner is the distance from Washington, D.C. to Chicago.
That is
That's a big one. So when Jared got on the phone and said, we love this, found a ranch. It's a town beginning with W. And
you were like?
I go through the Rolodex,
Yes.
Wolf Point, that's 5 hours away. Well, that's still better than, New Mexico. And but it ended up being on a ranch that the first 2 weeks were 20 minutes from the house.
That's what I read.
So, it was unusual. And all the people that were in the crowd scenes I knew because they were all people that I forced Jared to look at and consider. And he was willing to do that. And it was just such a important thing that we're going to get to go back to Montana in January and do a road show and take it to the little small old movie houses in about 6 cities. Yeah. And some are restored and fixed up.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. It's good to hear that, Yeah. And speaking of which, the crowd scenes and the smaller, some of the extras, rather, were your own family members, right, Bill?
Yeah.
But your niece played a whore. And, I understand.
My nephew's wife, she got a romp with that, and then the son of a tractor mechanic, and the taxidermist was in it, and my one son played the banjo in the saloon. And,
yes, right.
Wife and daughter were in the hanging scene, and son Lewis was the one who put the noose around my neck. He had speaking part. Billy Kitchen, he had great enthusiasm for that. So
I got to ask you, since you brought it up, what is that experience like? I mean, having a noose, the feel of a noose around your neck.
Yeah,
you can kind of relate all of a sudden to this historically to all these people that have been.
Well, you think about
handed those punishments.
What it is to have a crowd pulling you, and you feel that this there's subduing you and rendering you inactive, and then putting a noose around your neck. It's a pretty scary thing, and we did it as the way Jared designed it. I'm getting dragged back to a log hut where they're going to pull off, and just string me up right back there.
They seem real ready. They were ready to go with that scene. It's like they were. Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, sure, soon. Yeah. Anyway,
also there's going to be a deleted scene that on the DVD where you get to see them beat him up, and it's pretty brutal.
Yeah. Was that? Were you supposed to be beaten up?
It was a different scene.
Okay.
Different scene.
because he didn't look.
No. It was a different scene that was much earlier in the movie.
Okay.
That got cut out. But actually, I really liked the scene, and I liked the fighting, and I liked that Bill's son got to punch him. He was only supposed to punch him once in the stomach.
He
punched him twice.
Oh, yeah. That's what you get for being a good actor.
Yeah, and it was a cool scene. I love the way it was shot, but it just, it was one of those things where, you cut it out and it went smoother. So it'll be on the DVD.
Oh, well, we're plugging the DVD. That's good. We'll
plugging everything.
No problem with that, by the way. And when the time comes, I'll be sure to repost the show. And when you were doing those crowds, interesting because at one point there was in various places where they would hang people, or there was the guillotine as well. There was a bloodthirst in the audience, like in the crowd. But I kind of was looking for that in your crowd, even though it was a very big crowd. But there was a scene where I was watching where there was a hanging in the film, and I was kind of looking to see what was the tone at that time, because of course things did change where people are still relatively immune to the violence of that, because violence was such a central thing in everyone's lives, Mm-hmm. But that still, it seemed like they understood the weight, the burden of that, of being complicit by watching it, and it seemed like some of the people really did have a hard time, even though they were kids in there.
I think it was a complex thing by that
It is
point.
complex.
But it's 1889. The frontier is starting to close off. It's more civilized than it's ever been before there. I think for a lot of people, there was still like this entertaining value of it. But you bring your family and such forth. But for a lot of other people, this was this shouldn't be happening. We're a civilized society.
Yeah.
We
Right.
are now a state,
Right.
and we shouldn't be hanging people.
That's right. Well, the name of the film is called The Ballad of Lefty Brown, and it's going to be here in New York in theaters a week from
No, tonight.
Tonight?
Opens tonight.
I better work fast.
Opens tonight,
It's
and
currently
then
currently screening in New York and where
the Village East and in L.A.
In LA.
and it's going
At
to roll
the
out
Laemmle-
at the Laemmle NoHo in L.A.
and Lemley NoHo.
and it's going to be rolling out in more theaters in January.
Okay, great. Well, thank you both guys. Beautiful, lovely. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. It was really. I just was walking around and I was doing a series before.